Okay, could you believe this? I want to show you what is going on here. Let me share my screen. Hold on. Okay, so archive of political emails. This is from the Maura Healey campaign. It says, we are being outraised. This is from May 9th, 26 at 2:31 p.m. This is what it says. Team, do you have $14 million lying around? Yeah, neither do we. But we just learned that's how much one of Maura's Republican opponents has self-funded since launching his campaign. Let's be clear about what this means. Every time we send you an email or make a call to ask supporters like you to chip in 10 or 25 bucks, he could just open his checkbook and write himself another $1 million check. We're not going to pretend that doesn't put us at a disadvantage. It does. Maura has spent her entire career fighting for families because she believes in the work, and that's exactly the kind of leadership Massachusetts needs. So we're asking everyone on this team to step up right now, because if we all do our part, we can compete against his self-funding millions. Now, first of all, it says just learned. I wanted to point this out really quickly. This has been going on for months. If this was a legitimate concern, it would have been a legitimate concern many moons ago. Many moons ago. But now they're starting to crank up their fundraising because guess what? Both Republican candidates are starting to gain steam. That is effectively what's happening here. Now, the only difference is Mike Minogue does have a lot of money. That is 100% true. But the other reality, there's a couple truths here that we could talk about, and I'm going to show you what happens next. The far reality here is that when you're challenging an incumbent in a deep blue state where the entire legislature is controlled by Democrats amongst the entire state itself, then it's very hard to raise money for these people. Okay, it's very hard to raise money for these people. So the only alternative and the only resource that they have is if they have money themselves, they could throw it into the pot. Maura Healey has had many years in order to raise a ton of money. She was the AG. She's the current sitting governor of Massachusetts. She's had every single opportunity to raise more money, but now she's in a position that she's getting challenged. These other Republican candidates are gaining steam. She is worried. Her campaign is worried. The entire plot line is about to come crumbling down. So they send this email on the 9th. They collected, and you could look this up if you want, they collected roughly about $100,000 since they fired off this email. I checked the campaign finance website prior to this. I'm not going to show you what it is. Just trust me. The other thing was the 9 days prior, because it's roughly about 9 days from the 9th, today's the 18th. If you were to look at the campaign records for the previous 9 days, they raised about $52,000 or $53,000. So they effectively doubled their campaign money, which is good on them. She has every opportunity to collect as much money as she wants, as well as everybody else. They should be able to do the same exact thing. But then here's what happens next. So I forget when this happened. This may have happened on Thursday or Friday or last week. Basically, I'm just going to read you what this says. It says, Ms. Rausch moved that the proposed new text by amended by adding the following section. It says, Section 7, Chapter 55 of General Laws is hereby amended by striking out in lines 13 to 17, inclusive the words, a candidate may make expenditures without limitation for the purpose of his own campaign and may make campaign contributions without limitation for the benefit of the non-elected political committee organized on his behalf. Basically, what they want to do is they want to strike that line out. The reason they want to strike that line out is because they want the playing field to be on level. That's the truth of the matter. That's what they're trying to do. Perhaps they thought that the original email was going to secure more money. I'm not entirely sure. But here's the problem when you are doing something like this. Listen, Maura Healey, as I said earlier, she's been the attorney general, right? She's been and is the governor. That is years upon years of building relationships, networking opportunities, and building a donor Rolodex that was years in the making. That's what's going on top of the free state-funded biased media that we have here, on top of every single union boss and lobbyist that donates to her campaign, and every single PAC that donates to her campaign. She's had years to build her platform. That's the truth. She already has the war chest, and she's had years to fill it. These are all complete facts. So when and if you try to ban self-funding, you are not leveling anything. You are just essentially it's like building a 10-foot wall around your entire party and then lighting any of the ladders that they throw against the wall on fire. That's what's going on. And everybody is watching it happen. And that's what's going on here. That is the truth of the matter. So look at it this way. Why don't you guys, here's some advice. Why don't you guys just take a step back and stop pretending that this is anything other than trying to keep your party in power forever? That is essentially what they want to do here. And here's the other thing. When you start to do stuff like this, when you go and change the rules to win, let's say, one race, you're not just rigging this election. What you are effectively doing is you are handing the next party, if they ever do get in power by some unknown force of nature, you're handing them a loaded gun that they're going to point right back at you. Do you see what I'm saying? Both parties do this, okay? This happens all of the time on a national level. So it really doesn't matter what side the power pendulum swings in this regard. It doesn't matter, because all you're doing is building the weapon that's going to be used against you the second that you're out of power. And I get it, okay? I get it. I know what they're trying to do. I know what they want to do, but it's problematic in and there and of itself. It is. This isn't about some level of democracy or not, right? This is like the Democratic Party here. Look at it this way. If you're not from Massachusetts, the Democratic Party is basically like the cartel with better branding. That's what it is. That's all that this is. Because here's what happens. When you self-fund a campaign and you have the opportunity to self-fund a campaign, this is entirely a challenger move, right? They need to do it. They don't want to do it. They need to do it. But these incumbents here, they don't have to self-fund. Maura Healey doesn't have to self-fund because the machine they built basically prints the checks for her anyway. That's what's going on. So when you take self-funding off of the table in a deep blue one-party state like Massachusetts, congratulations. You just handed every single Democratic incumbent a guaranteed lifetime appointment. That's what's going on. So why even bother with the elections anymore? Really? Why even have elections if you're going to do something like this? Why don't we just print Maura Healey? Why don't we just print her on the ballot in gold? That's what we should do. We'll skip all the formalities and she could be the governor until the day we're all gone, right? Listen, when you put or want to put limits on self-funding, this is like trying to win. A swimming race against Michael Phelps with cement blocks on your feet. And then on top of that, after the race, you find out one of the judges is like his cousin or something like that. That's what it's like being in politics here in Massachusetts. It absolutely sucks. It absolutely sucks. And if these people genuinely cared about money and politics, why are they not going after super PACs? Why are they not going after dark money, right? Why are they not going after untraceable outside amounts of money that corrupts these elections anyway, right? None of that is touched by this amendment that I just showed you, Amendment 308. None of that is touched, not a single word. So your choice is either a billionaire or a millionaire who wants to buy a race and then pour millions of dollars in. So you could either do it transparently by doing it yourself or funneling it through some kind of super PAC that nobody knows about. That's what I'm trying to say. This amendment doesn't stop that, is what I'm trying to say. So if this gets signed into law, all these people are going to do is hide their money inside of super PACs. That's what's going to happen, right? The only thing that this effectively does is ban the candidate from openly and transparently spending their own money on their own campaign with their own name on it. So please, somebody with any lick of common sense, could somebody please explain to me how that reduces the influence of wealth in politics? It doesn't. It doesn't, because it's never about that. This is about Maura Healey getting absolutely steamrolled because of her own doing, okay? Let's not even talk about the people that are challenging her. The reason you have to understand something. The reason Maura Healey is in the position that she's in, this has nothing to do with money. Okay. The reason that she's in the position that she's in is because of the position that she put herself in. And by doing that, it affected every single sitting person inside of this state. That is what the problem is. And the other reality is that people are waking up to the nonsense. People are waking up to the nonsense. Do you think that they would have to put out an email like this and then file an amendment to the language of limitations and expenditures for what somebody that's challenging a governor could put in? No, they wouldn't do that. But the fact is they're scared. They're scared. And the only reason that they're scared is not because of the influence of money. And it doesn't have to do with the money. That is one part of the pie, or one piece of the pie. But the majority of the pie is her doing. That's the truth. That's the truth. They are scared, and the writing is on the wall. If they weren't scared, they wouldn't have to do anything like this. They wouldn't have to bend the rules to their favor. And like I said earlier, you can't do stuff like this and not expect this to happen to you if you're not in power. That's what happens. You could apply the same rules across the board. When you try to manipulate rules and amend this and amend that, or make a contingency on something, all you're doing, it's a waiting game for you, right? It's a waiting game for you, because as soon as a time comes where you are out of power, the people on the other side of that pendulum, once that pendulum of power swings in the opposite direction, they are going to 10x that. And that's what the Democrats are effectively trying to do now. They're trying to protect their own because they have to protect their own. That's the truth. If they weren't worried, these things wouldn't have happened in total. Now, I understand that money is a problem in politics. I totally understand that. But this only is very specific. It's very specific in the timeline. It's very specific, the language that they're eliminating, which still allows these dark money and super PACs to, you could basically funnel your money into those in one way or another and then donate it back to your campaign. So if they're okay with that, why are they not okay with the transparency level, where if somebody does have some money and they want to contribute that money into their own campaign, what, they want us to not know about that? It doesn't make any sense. It's completely backwards. This is stupid for all that for all the matters. That's what I think. I think it's stupid. I think it's foolish, and these things will only backfire in the future. That's it.